Welcome to True Crime File Locker. It's a story that seems too shocking to be true. A young girl betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Angel Coleman, a bright high school senior, faced unimaginable horrors in a life filled with secrets, lies, and unthinkable acts of cruelty. This case isn't just about one tragedy, it's about a broken system, failed trust, and the dark side of human nature. Her story begins in Castle Rock, Colorado, where a quiet suburban life masked the pain and injustice she endured daily. But Angel wasn't just a victim. She was brave, speaking out about corruption and trying to make her voice heard, even when it put her in danger. Her efforts to expose the truth ultimately led to a heartbreaking end. What happened to Angel is not just a crime, it's a wake-up call for everyone. This case uncovers betrayal, power abused by those in authority, and the courage of one young girl who tried to fight back. To understand this tragedy, we need to start with Angel's life and the challenges she faced growing up. Angel Coleman's life wasn't the suburban dream that people imagined when they looked at Castle Rock, Colorado. Her childhood took a devastating turn when she lost her mother in a car accident at the age of 11. Left in the care of her father, Alan Coleman, Angel's life became anything but stable. Alan worked hard as a construction foreman, but he struggled with anger issues and a rough temper, especially after his wife's death. When Angel was 13, Alan remarried Carla, a local business owner. At first, Carla seemed like a supportive stepmother, but her true colors quickly showed. Carla was strict, selfish, and demanding. Angel's days became a never-ending list of chores: cooking, cleaning, and running errands for hours, all while trying to keep up with her schoolwork. To the outside world, it looked like Angel was just a busy teenager. But inside her home, she was treated like a servant. The constant work and emotional neglect left Angel isolated and struggling to find joy in her teenage years. Yet, despite everything, she tried to focus on school and keep pushing forward. But Carla's controlling behavior didn't stop at chores. Behind closed doors, she had even darker plans for Angel, ones that would change her life forever. As if the endless chores and emotional abuse weren't enough, Carla Coleman had even worse intentions for Angel. Beneath the surface of their already toxic home life, Carla was making decisions that would shatter Angel's world. Struggling to keep her failing candle shop afloat, Carla saw Angel not as a stepdaughter, but as a way to solve her financial problems. Desperate for money, Carla made a deal with Sheriff Brad Kingston, a man with a spotless public reputation but a sinister private life. She sold Angel to him, treating her stepdaughter like nothing more than a transaction. For months, Angel was forced to live in Kingston's basement, where she endured unimaginable horrors. Trapped in that room, Angel found solace in writing. She poured her feelings into journals, expressing her anger, fear, and longing for freedom. She felt abandoned by her father, betrayed by her stepmother, and powerless against the sheriff's control. But even in her darkest moments, Angel never gave up hope. Carla's betrayal wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. She used Angel's suffering to maintain her lifestyle, showing no remorse for the harm she caused. But Angel wasn't going to stay silent. What Carla didn't know was that Angel was planning to expose the truth, even if it put her life at risk. To the people of Castle Rock, Sheriff Brad Kingston was a pillar of the community, someone they could trust. But behind the badge was a man hiding a dark and twisted secret. On the surface, Kingston appeared to be a dedicated law enforcement officer, always in control and respected by those around him. Yet, his private life told a much different story. Kingston used his position to project an image of authority and trust, but it masked his manipulative and predatory behavior. He took advantage of his power, making deals in the shadows and abusing those who were vulnerable. Angel Coleman became one of his victims, forced to live in his basement under the guise of a relationship that was anything but consensual. Kingston's home was like a prison for Angel. The basement was cold and sparsely furnished, with just a mattress, a desk, and a pile of notebooks, no place for a teenager to live. He controlled her every move, and she had no way to escape. Despite the horrors she faced, Angel kept writing, using her words as a way to fight back against her captor. For months, Kingston maintained the illusion of a respectable life, but cracks in his facade were beginning to show. Angel's determination to expose him and Carla was growing stronger by the day. Kingston, however, was oblivious to just how much evidence she was gathering, even as he tried to keep his dark secrets hidden. Trapped in the sheriff's basement with no one to turn to, Angel found strength in the one thing she could control: her words. She began pouring her pain and frustration into a journal, writing about everything she endured and the people who had betrayed her. For Angel, writing wasn't just an escape, it was a way to make sure her voice would be heard, even if no one was listening yet. Her journal entries revealed a young woman determined to fight back against the injustices she faced. Angel described the sheriff as a monster hiding behind a badge and called out Carla for selling her. She also wrote about the system that allowed people like Kingston to get away with their actions, expressing her anger and heartbreak at being let down by those in power. But Angel didn't stop at private writings. She started a secret blog where she exposed corruption and misconduct in Castle Rock. Her posts targeted powerful figures in the community, from school officials to law enforcement. One entry hinted at exposing a respected leader who abused his position, a clear nod to Kingston. Her words were brave, but they also put her in even more danger. Despite the risk, Angel didn't back down. She carried her journal and phone everywhere, determined to document the truth. She believed justice was possible, even if it seemed out of reach. But as her writings grew bolder, so did the danger she faced. Angel's courage was inspiring, but it also made her a target. The truth Angel fought so hard to reveal never had the chance to fully come to light. On the morning of July 15, 2015, her body was discovered in the woods near her home in Castle Rock, Colorado. A retired postal worker walking his dog stumbled upon the scene. At first, he thought it was a mannequin, but as he got closer, the horrifying reality became clear. Angel's body showed clear signs of violence. She had been brutally beaten, and the area around her was disturbed, evidence of a struggle. Her clothing was torn, and her face bore the marks of a savage attack. Investigators arrived quickly, sealing off the scene and beginning their search for answers. Her death sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community. Castle Rock was the kind of place where people felt safe, where tragedies like this seemed unimaginable. Social media erupted with disbelief and sorrow as classmates, neighbors, and local news outlets shared the heartbreaking story of a young life cut short. Detective Serena Bender, a seasoned investigator, took charge of the case. From the very beginning, it was clear that Angel's death was no accident. As officers combed the woods for evidence, they found a backpack nearby containing her personal items, but her phone, a critical piece of evidence, was missing. Angel's death left Castle Rock reeling, but for the detectives, it marked the start of a relentless search for the truth. The pieces of Angel's life and the people connected to her began to unravel, exposing secrets that would shock everyone. As investigators dug into Angel's life, they uncovered something unexpected: her blog. It wasn't just a teenager's diary or a place for venting frustrations. It was a platform where Angel fearlessly spoke out about corruption and injustice in Castle Rock. Operating anonymously, she had exposed the dark side of her community, calling out powerful figures who thought they were untouchable. Angel's blog posts were sharp and detailed, covering everything from school mismanagement to local government corruption. She accused a high school principal of misusing funds and hinted at cover use by local law enforcement. One post directly pointed to systemic issues within the sheriff's department, suggesting that a high-ranking official had abused their authority. While Angel didn't name names, her words painted a clear picture of someone like Sheriff Brad Kingston. Her activism made her enemies. People in positions of power weren't happy with the attention her posts were getting, even though she remained anonymous. But Angel's boldness wasn't just about exposing corruption. It was also a cry for help. She was trying to shed light on the very forces that had failed her, hoping her voice would make a difference. When detectives found drafts of unpublished posts on Angel's laptop, they realized she had been working on something big, evidence of her stepmother's role in her trafficking and the sheriff's involvement. These revelations deepened the mystery surrounding her death. Was her murder connected to her activism? Had she uncovered something someone wanted to keep hidden? Angel's courage in exposing the truth became a critical part of the investigation, but it also added layers of complexity. Her blog wasn't just a record of her bravery, it was a trail of breadcrumbs leading directly to the people who might have wanted her silenced. As the investigation progressed, Sheriff Brad Kingston became one of the central figures in Angel's case. His spotless public reputation began to crumble under scrutiny. When detectives questioned him, he admitted to having a relationship with Angel, but insisted it was consensual. He painted himself as a protector, claiming Angel had come to him willingly to escape her abusive home life. Kingston's version of events didn't match the evidence. Text messages from Angel revealed a much darker reality. She described him as controlling and manipulative, someone who used his authority to exploit her. In one message to a friend, she wrote, "He says he loves me, but all he loves is control. I just want to survive." Financial records also raised suspicions. Over the past year, Kingston had made large payments to Carla Coleman, Angel's stepmother. He claimed they were loans to support her business, but detectives suspected they were part of the arrangement that led to Angel's captivity. Despite his calm demeanor during questioning, Kingston grew defensive when confronted with these details, calling Angel's accusations lies. Kingston's behavior throughout the investigation added to the doubt surrounding his innocence. He often deflected questions, emphasizing his years of service to the community and claiming he was being targeted unfairly. But his attempts to protect his image couldn't hide the growing inconsistencies in his story. While Kingston denied any role in Angel's death, the evidence against him continued to mount. Detectives weren't just looking at his relationship with Angel. They were also investigating allegations of corruption within his department. These accusations, combined with his connection to Carla and Angel, kept him firmly under the microscope. Carla Coleman's role in Angel's tragic story became clearer as detectives examined her financial history. Her candle shop, Lavender Lights, had been struggling for years, barely making enough to stay open. Locals whispered about its constant emptiness, and her financial records painted a grim picture. Carla was drowning in debt, and desperation seemed to drive her every move. The investigation revealed that over the past year, Carla had received nearly $50,000 in payments from Sheriff Brad Kingston. She claimed the money was a loan to keep her business afloat, but detectives uncovered text messages suggesting otherwise. In one exchange with a friend, Carla joked about being the sheriff's side piece and doing what she had to do to survive. The payment stopped abruptly around the same time Angel was forced to move into Kingston's basement. This sudden halt raised even more questions. Was Carla pushed out of Kingston's life because of Angel, and did her financial collapse deepen her resentment toward her stepdaughter? Carla's financial desperation painted her as someone willing to cross any line to maintain her lifestyle. She had already exploited Angel to secure her business. As her debts piled up and her relationship with Kingston soured, her frustration and jealousy grew. This toxic mix of motives placed Carla at the center of the investigation. Detectives began to see her actions not just as acts of survival, but as calculated steps that spiraled into something far more sinister. Carla's financial troubles were no longer just her personal downfall. They became a driving force behind Angel's tragic fate. In a breakthrough moment during the investigation, detectives uncovered something that would change everything: a hidden camera inside Sheriff Kingston's basement. It had been overlooked during the initial search, but when a second round of searches took place, this small, concealed device revealed chilling new evidence. The camera, tucked into a vent high in the basement, had been secretly installed. Its memory card contained hours of footage from the very space where Angel had been forced to live. At first, investigators thought the camera might have been used to spy on Angel, but what they discovered next was even more unsettling. The footage revealed more than just Kingston's control over Angel. it uncovered the role of someone else entirely. Among the recordings was a disturbing scene that showed Angel pacing in the basement, speaking to someone on the phone. Later that night, the camera captured a figure entering the room. Alan Coleman, Angel's father. Alan appeared tense and purposeful as he entered the basement, holding what looked like a wrench. The investigators froze the frame, unsure of what to make of the image. While there was no direct evidence of violence in the footage, Alan's presence with a tool in hand raised troubling questions. Why was he there, and what did he intend to do? The discovery of the footage sent shockwaves through the investigation. Suddenly, Alan, who had previously been cooperative and grief-stricken, became a person of interest. His involvement in Angel's life had always been complicated, but this new evidence forced detectives to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Alan Coleman's involvement in Angel's tragic story took a dark turn with the revelation of the hidden camera footage. For weeks, he had appeared as a grieving father, devastated by the loss of his daughter. But as detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a complicated and troubling side to his relationship with Angel. Alan's temper had long been a topic of whispers in the community. While he had worked hard as a construction foreman, his outbursts and volatile behavior were no secret. Some friends and neighbors had even hinted at the tension between him and Angel, especially after his remarriage to Carla. Though there were no formal reports of abuse, Angel's friends later admitted she had expressed fear of her father's anger. When detectives confronted Alan with the footage of him entering Kingston's basement, his reaction was shock. He denied any involvement in Angel's death, claiming he had gone to confront Carla, whom he suspected of cheating. His explanation seemed unlikely, especially given the evidence that placed him at Kingston's house late at night, holding a wrench in his hand. Alan's story shifted as he admitted to being angry at Carla, but he insisted he never intended to harm Angel. He said he was simply looking for answers, bringing the wrench as a way to intimidate Kingston, not as a weapon to harm his daughter. His grief seemed genuine, but the inconsistencies in his statements and the questions about his strained relationship with Angel raised doubts. Detectives struggled to separate Alan's guilt from his grief. His presence in Kingston's home at such a critical time complicated their investigation. While he expressed deep sorrow for failing to protect Angel, his actions or lack of action during her years of abuse remained a key part of the puzzle. The investigation into Angel's death reached a turning point when detectives finally confronted Carla Coleman with the mounting evidence. Her lies had been unraveling, and the pressure was building. It was only a matter of time before she would be forced to face the truth. When detectives presented her with the financial records showing the large sums of money she had received from Sheriff Kingston, Carla initially stuck to her story, claiming the money was simply a loan to help her struggling business. But her composure began to crack as they revealed more details, text messages from her, joking about her relationship with Kingston and referring to him as a side piece to keep her shop afloat. As the questioning intensified, Carla's defenses crumbled. She admitted to having an affair with Kingston, but tried to downplay her role in the events leading to Angel's death. Then, in a shocking moment, Carla broke down, confessing to striking Angel in the head with a garden shovel during a heated argument. In her own words, Carla described the attack as a moment of rage, a desperate outburst triggered by her growing resentment toward Angel. She blamed Angel for taking Kingston's attention away from her and for the financial strain she was facing. Carla admitted that, in the heat of the moment, she hit Angel and panicked when her stepdaughter collapsed. Carla's confession sent shockwaves through the investigation. The woman who had once appeared to be a victim of circumstances revealed herself to be the person responsible for ending Angel's life. Her actions were driven not only by anger, but by a mix of jealousy and financial desperation. The arrest was a devastating moment for Angel's family and the community, but it also marked the end of a long, painful search for justice. Carla was finally held accountable for her crime, but the damage had already been done. Carla Coleman's trial began in early 2016, and it quickly became the center of attention in Castle Rock. The courtroom was filled with emotion, with family, friends, and the community watching as Carla's fate was decided. The prosecution laid out the case against her, focusing on the evidence that painted a clear picture of premeditated murder driven by jealousy, anger, and desperation. Carla's defense team, however, took a different approach. They argued that she had acted in self-defense, claiming Angel was violent and unpredictable. They painted Angel as a troubled teen who had escalated tensions in the home, and suggested that Carla's actions were a desperate attempt to protect herself. But the prosecution was quick to dismantle these claims. There was no evidence to support the defense's accusations of violence from Angel. Testimony from Angel's friends, teachers, and social workers painted a completely different picture of the young woman, one of kindness, vulnerability, and a desire to survive her difficult circumstances. The defense's attempt to smear Angel's character fell apart under scrutiny. The prosecution also highlighted the forensic evidence, including the soil samples from Carla's shoes that matched the dirt found where Angel's body was discovered. They presented the chilling footage of Carla entering the woods with a shovel, all of which pointed to her guilt. In the end, the jury deliberated for just 5 hours before returning a guilty verdict on the charge of first-degree murder. Carla showed no visible reaction when the verdict was read. Her trial was over, but the pain she caused would linger long after. In March 2016, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge condemned her actions as cruel and calculated, and the relief felt by Angel's family was bittersweet. They would never get back the daughter they had lost, but at least justice had been served. In the wake of Angel's murder and Carla Coleman's conviction, the fallout for those connected to the case continued to unfold, and their lives were forever changed. Sheriff Brad Kingston, once a respected figure in Castle Rock, saw his career and reputation destroyed. While he was never charged directly in connection with Angel's death, his involvement with her, along with the public outcry over his actions, led to the end of his career. In May 2016, Kingston was forced to resign from his position as sheriff. The community, once proud of him, now saw him as a symbol of corruption and abuse of power. A subsequent investigation into his conduct revealed numerous ethical violations, including misuse of department funds and evidence tampering. Though Kingston avoided criminal charges, the damage to his reputation was irreparable. Kingston, now in his late 50s, retreated from public life. He reportedly found work as a security guard in a neighboring county, a far cry from the influential position he once held. His name became synonymous with scandal, and any hope of restoring his former status was gone. Alan Coleman, Angel's father, also faced significant backlash after the trial. Though he was never charged with his daughter's murder, his role in her life was scrutinized in the court of public opinion. His past history of anger issues, his neglect of Angel during her years of suffering, and his apparent indifference to the abuse she endured at the hands of Carla painted him in a negative light. In the aftermath, Alan took a leave of absence from his job as a truck driver. Friends and family described him as a broken man, grappling with guilt and regret. In interviews, Alan admitted to feeling like a failure as a father and expressed deep sorrow for not protecting Angel from the people who harmed her. But despite his grief, the questions about his role in her tragic life would always linger. The murder of Angel Coleman left an indelible mark on the small town of Castle Rock. What had once been a peaceful suburban community was now forced to confront the darker side of life that had been hiding in plain sight. The shocking events surrounding Angel's death sparked outrage and sorrow, but they also brought about change. In the wake of the tragedy, many residents and local leaders began to call for reform. The case exposed serious flaws in the Child Protective Services system and raised questions about how such abuse could go unnoticed for so long. Angel's story became a rallying cry for those pushing for greater accountability within local law enforcement and child welfare agencies. Locally, several grassroots movements were born from the tragedy, with activists working to raise awareness about the issues that had led to Angel's suffering. Charities supporting at-risk youth gained momentum, with many inspired by Angel's courage to fight for justice. Though her life was cut short, her bravery became a symbol for those fighting against abuse, exploitation, and corruption. At the same time, Angel's memory was kept alive by those who loved her. Memorials were held in Castle Rock, and her story was shared widely to ensure that her death wasn't in vain. While the legal system had delivered its verdict, the town's soul had been shaken to its core, and the ripples of Angel's case continued to echo throughout the community. The impact of Angel's story went far beyond Castle Rock, reaching people across the nation. It served as a reminder of the systemic failures that allow such tragedies to unfold, and the importance of speaking out against injustice, no matter how powerful the forces behind it. Angel's legacy will live on, inspiring those who fight for the vulnerable, for the truth, and for a world where stories like hers are no longer a reality,